Hey guys, this is Miss Erin. I'm coming to you from my house today. I'm so sorry that I can't be with you guys this week. The first part of the lesson, I'm going to be recording myself talking to you like I am now. And then the second half of the lesson, I'm going to do a screen recording. So that's kind of how this is going to flow. As you know, we usually use the first, 20 to 30 minutes of class to review homework, and we go over every single person's personal website to see how they've executed the homework, and we do sort of a critique of everyone's photos. But unfortunately, not everyone has their homework up yet, so I think we're going to save that actually for the first few minutes of class next week. So we'll critique this week's homework along with last week's homework. Okay, yeah, so if you're watching it next week, basically 2 weeks worth of homework we're going to be critiquing in class first thing when I get back next week. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was the 365 project that I told you guys about. Of course, we're going to do sort of a modified version of the 365 project. We're going to start it on the first day of March, which is this Friday, March 1st, and then we're going to end it on the 31st of March. I know I'd already talked to you guys about that. I'm just reiterating it. Also, with the second class, I realized that your spring break is going to be that first week of April, and the due date for your project was going to be April 10th, which would be the first day after you come back from spring break. And I realized that was kind of cruel because that would mean that over spring break, you would be trying to figure out how to get your prints done and all of that. So I don't want you to have that hassle over spring break. So what I want to do is change the due date to April 17th. Can you guys see that? So it's now going to be due April 17th. That just gives you a few extra days to get everything together, to get all your prints done, put them together however you want to turn them in. So as we talked on this past Wednesday, the 365 project is modified to 31 days. And what's expected of you is to take one picture each day for the entire month of March. It won't take long. I mean, literally, you just need to set an alarm on your watch or wherever just to remind you to do it every day. That's the thing. I mean, it will be kind of an imposition on some days, and that's okay. Not every day will be your best work. I'm in no way advocating that you don't give me your best work, but I mean, there might be a day when it's really dreary outside, kind of like today, and it seems like just about every day we've had pretty much lately. So you'll be wanting to utilize window light, or maybe you can go outside like under an awning. But the most important thing is to capture something, and it does not have to be human. I know a lot of times in the projects that we have, I will tell you for this project as a portrait assignment, you need to take pictures of humans. Like for street photography, I wanted that to be humans. For this, it can be anything. It can be anything that demonstrates any kind of beauty in your life, or maybe not beauty, maybe just something you encounter during the month of March. So every day can be different, or you can do kind of a theme. Today we're going to be talking about self-portraits, so you're more than welcome to use the self-portrait theme through the month of March if you want to. You're welcome to make everything black and white. You're welcome to capture a different leaf on a tree every day if that's the direction you want to take it. Or it can be different every day. One day it could be a shoe. One day it could be your mom. One day it could be the bus. One day it could be, going shopping. Whatever it is that inspires you and you think you document well, that's what I want you to do, okay? And again, let me just make sure I've gone over all the parameters, because sometimes I start talking in class and I don't go over all of the little idiosyncrasies. And I know that last time we had a project, sometimes a few people didn't quite read all the parameters. So, all right. So, I want you to edit each photo. Don't forget to edit. Editing is part of what we're learning in this class, and a picture without editing is unfinished. It's fine just for your normal documentation purposes. But for this class, we're trying to learn how to be more professional in the product we deliver. So you want to be sure that you're editing in some form or fashion. Again, you need to order prints. This is not something that we're going to post on our website. We actually want to have physical prints in hand. All right. Don't forget to vary I say vary your subject's angles and backdrop. Basically, I just want you to vary most of those, okay? Like the subject, like I told you guys, it can be the same subject, just captured in different ways every day. But you know, you want to vary your angles and backdrops. You don't want every single shot to be the same, right? If you're capturing pictures of people, make sure that you're editing with an eye for skin tones. So like if you're going kind of cool in one picture, you want to go kind of cool in another picture. If you're going warmer, then you want to stay warmer. You kind of want to make sure that you have some cohesion, right, to your photos as a set. All right. Don't forget to utilize composition techniques from class, okay? If all else fails, what do I always tell you guys, right? I always say rule of thirds is a great fallback if you don't know what else you should use. Rule of thirds is a great one. Rule of threes, always keep in mind your lines. Go back to those first few assignments and just kind of remind yourself about the different composition principles. This is kind of an assignment. It kind of reminds me of the still life assignment when you have so much creative control. You have so much creative control of this assignment. And so I really want you to be mindful of using these different composition techniques, okay? Let's see. Oh, aspect ratio. I know there was one class I did not mention this to. It's in the notes, the project notes, but your aspect ratio, like usually in your camera, you'll be shooting in a 2:3 aspect ratio. So if you go to print, it'll be like a 4:6 or an 8:12, something like that. I want you guys to keep that aspect ratio. So if you see something you want to crop in your image, you'll want to, like, depending on what keyboard you have, it'll be like a shift and crop so that that aspect ratio stays the same. You're never going to be able to crop into like a square. If you don't understand what I'm saying, just feel free to email me and I'll go into more detail about that with you. But I prefer you not to have to crop, but sometimes it's necessary. But when you do, you just want that aspect ratio to remain the same, okay? And then just think about taking your camera with you everywhere. Like, I know that it's kind of a drudgery. Welcome to my world. This is the world of a photographer. But just for a month, just think about, okay, I'm going to the grocery store. I haven't taken my 365 picture for today, and I'm just going to take it and see what happens. Maybe you want to do a street photo that day, right? Maybe you're going to a soccer game and you have a friend playing and you want to take a picture of like an action shot. That's great. Use this opportunity to broaden your horizons. That's kind of what the deal is. It seems like photographers who I've watched take this project on, they always develop. They always expand their horizons. And that's exactly what I expect for you guys to be able to do, okay? Please don't be sloppy. I mean, that's the one thing that I beg of you guys. Like, you're not doing yourself a favor if you don't take this project seriously because anybody can just go out and snap a shot that's underexposed and blurry and not thoughtful and not using composition principles. But you guys are blessed with the gift of a DSLR camera, a nice one, or most of you have a DSLR camera. Whatever you have, whatever equipment you have, it's a blessing that you have that equipment and you have the opportunity to learn how to use it. And I really, really want you guys to take this opportunity to get more acquainted with your camera, to get more acquainted with these composition principles, okay? And then the last thing is I want you to check out some other 365 projects. I'm going to actually show you when I do my screen video, I'm going to show you a 365 project that I thought was beautiful and inspiring. And then you can just look at that one if you want, or if you want to go online and if your parents allow you to go online and, Google like 365 projects and kind of just look and see what else is out there, see the other cool things other people have come up with. I think that's a great way to kind of prepare yourself for Friday when your 365 project starts, okay? All right, so this week we're going to be talking about self-portraits. I think this could be a really interesting addition to your 365 project. Like I said, when I assign homework over the month of March, please feel free to use your homework photos in your 365 project so you're not duplicating. I know it's a lot. It's not a lot, but I know it's a lot to remember every day. And so I want to make sure that you have that you're not overloaded in any way. So that's kind of my answer. If you don't want to use your self-portrait for one of your 365 days, you do not have to by any stretch of the imagination. Or if you want to fill up every day of your 365 project with self-portraits, again, whatever you want to do, whatever direction you want to take it. So anyway, I'm going to be back with you in just a second. I feel like I've introduced this the topic for this week, self-portraits, and I'll be back with you to kind of tell you a little bit more about self-portraits, give you some examples, and again, we're going to be looking at that 365 project. All right, see you in a sec. All right, everybody. Just going to make sure we're on. I think we are. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you guys. This is a full 365 days worth of photos. I found this on YouTube. I do not know this photographer, but I thought this would be excellent inspiration for you guys. I'll go ahead and start playing it. So basically, forgive the cheesy music, but as you can see, it's like every day there's literally something different. It does look like, this person may have been at the beach for a while, and maybe a few of those photos happened there, but as you can see, there are no 2 days that are the same. It's different every day, and this photographer is really gifted, I think. Okay, so this person has chosen really only to photograph, well, mostly things and very few people. I really like how this person does a lot of abstract photos, but not limited to that by any means. So we're finally on day 100. We're not even halfway through the year yet. hopefully you guys are able to hear me over the music. I feel like I'm competing with it a little bit, but you can really tell that this person has done a lot of post-processing work, and I really appreciate that. Um, for me, it's not important that you guys bring everything into Lightroom or Photoshop each day after you shoot. I think it's enough just taking out the camera. It's fine to just shoot one picture each day, and then you can edit everything on the back end, unless you just want to edit everything on a day-by-day basis. So it's really up to you. I love how one day the photographer literally just takes a picture of his lens. I mean, and you may have a day like that, and you're just like, okay, what is the closest thing to me that I can take a picture of? But then other days you'll have something really amazing happen, or have a really amazing idea. Um, I just love the idea of pushing ourselves to take one picture each day. So I definitely see some recurring themes here. I've seen the hand holding the glass ball several times. I've seen colored pencils a few times, and that's fine. So you could think about taking anything that we've talked about, any one topic, and making it your full 365 project. Like, I know a lot of you really love abstract photography, and I've seen a lot of that demonstrated in here, and it's a lot of fun to do, and it's very artistic, and it can be even something that you might want to print and put on your wall. So just feel free to take an idea and run with it. That's what I want you guys to do. All right. So I love how toward the end you can really tell it was Christmas because the photographer took a picture of, a house with Christmas lights, and we saw a candle and a kid with a Santa hat on. So again, I mean, this is about documenting your story. So uh, do with it what you will. I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone comes up with. Hopefully, this gave you a little inspiration. Feel free to look around online and see if there's anything else that inspires you. All right, so now we're going to get into self-portrait photography, so stay tuned. Hey there, I'm back again. So I wanted to start talking to you guys a little bit about self-portraiture, and I figured that what better way to sort of introduce the topic than to kind of tell you about my own personal experience. Um, So I have several publications that I work with, and one asked me for a new headshot. And of course, I never have a new headshot because anytime I'm taking a picture, I'm taking the picture of someone else, and it's my preference really to be behind the camera instead of in front of it. But I got this really cool technology that allowed me to trigger my camera remotely and kind of watch myself posing myself on my iPhone. So it was a pretty cool experience. I used natural light and my studio backdrop. Um, but I had to kind of ask myself, what is it that I want to show the world? Like, how do I want to portray myself? And just a little bit about my background. And I think I shared this with you guys on the first day of class, but a lot of you have joined since then. So I'll just reshare. When I graduated college, I decided to go to law school. And I think pretty early on, I knew that that was not going to be my favorite profession ever. But being the kind of person I am, very motivated. So I tried, I did my best. I graduated with honors, and then I started working in a law firm, and it was just miserable for me. Why? Because I've always been more of an artist. So 3 years into my law career, I had a sort of a revelation that I wanted to be an artist, and I started trying out new mediums, and photography is the one that stuck. But right after I quit my law job, I sold all my suits, and I swore that I would never spend another day like restricted in that kind of office wear that I really hated. And anyway, I feel very blessed to have the profession I have now. So, all that to say, when I was given the task of taking a self portrait, I wanted to convey all of that. Now, you can't tell all of that by looking at this picture, but this is like the culmination of all of these things. Like, I would never wear a business suit in my self portrait in my headshot picture because that's not how I want to portray myself to the world. I want to look like an artist. I want to wear colorful clothes. Um, and I chose not to smile because like I wanted to convey like sort of like an intensity and like a passion that I have for my craft. So that's just a little snippet of why I chose to make my self portrait look like this. Each of you will have your own set of reasons for the way you photograph yourself. Um, but that's those are my reasons, and I'll leave that up for a minute while I kind of talk to you a little bit about self portraits in general, or maybe I'll go off of this one and look at a different one. Let's see. I believe there were some others in this set. Where are you? Okay, there we go. All right, this is a man by the name of Ansel Adams. Do any of you know him? You should. You've probably seen some of his landscapes and trees. He's a very famous artist. Um, but I'm just going to let you guys take him in as I talk to you a little bit about self-portraits. So just like I told you with my self-portraits make a personal statement. So you want to think about that when you're taking your own self-portrait. You're showing the outside world how you see yourself, right? And also how you want to be seen. It also allows you to kind of practice posing, like what works for you, right? Some things to consider are Like, what is the mood that of your photo? Like in my photo, it was sort of a mixture of, bright colors, yet like a solemn expression, right? More kind of reflective. You may want to go with a different emotion like happy, even sad, right? What backdrop would work the best, right? Look at Ansel Adams. He's out in nature. I wonder why he chose that. Actually, I don't wonder, right? We know the answer to that because he was a nature photographer. So naturally, he would have some kind of landscape in his background. Here it's a pine tree, right? Um, so that's what we call kind of an environmental backdrop. In my picture, I chose just a very bland background, like that way it kind of pulls the attention to the subject, right? But here we have an environmental backdrop. And so an environmental portrait that is taken in a setting that says something about who you are. So like maybe your place of work. In this case, Ansel Adams is in nature where that's his place of work. Or maybe a place of rest or play, right? And so it kind of contributes to the message in the portrait, right? Environmental portraits might incorporate trade tools. So here we see Ansel Adams with his camera because that's the tool of his trade. If we were looking at an artist, we might see canvases and brushes. We might see, a police officer in full uniform. It just depends on what the profession is and or what the craft is that the person who's in the picture is trying to show the outside world, right? Do you want to have a clean, you might want to have a clean and consistent background like I had in my portrait, right? Maybe you want an in focus background, like maybe you don't want a really shallow aperture because you want all of the stuff in the background to be seen because it's important to your picture. It really just depends. It's definitely a matter of personal preference. Again, as we've talked about before, a blurry background will bring less attention to what's in the background. But even then, like the colors and shapes and forms, they'll all be blurred out, but they're important to the picture. So keep that in mind when you're doing your own self-portrait. What about light? So if you're conveying happiness, consider using natural light. Go back to our natural light notes to create a nice, pleasing, well-lit picture. You can do this inside with indirect sunlight coming in through the window, or you can go outside in some open shade, and that will give you a really nice, well-lit portrait, right? If you're trying to depict sort of a moodier portrait, consider playing with hard light. I know we haven't done a whole lot of that, but like some direct light on the face, right? You can even, so, when you're using that hard light, it will really kind of emphasize the mood that you're trying to convey. Maybe like a half lit face or a light coming down over the face so that the eye sockets are almost black, right? Think about your styling. Like, what are your hair, clothes, accessories? What are they going to look like? And what are they going to convey to the viewer, right? You're trying to figure out what message you want to send to the outside world with your self-portrait. All right, I'm going to move on to a different picture just so we'll have something different to look at while we're going over these notes. This is Mario Testino. You may know him as the official photographer of the Royals, which I find it really interesting that he has all this like molding in the background, like he's somewhere very fine and fancy, which that makes sense because he's in a lot of places like that, right? Being the royal family photographer. Think about your gaze. You might choose to look right into the lens and connect with your viewer. And then if you decide to look away from the lens, that's okay too. It creates more distance from the viewer. So going back to Ansel Adams, he's not looking in the camera. He wants us to see him in action, right? Me, I wanted to look right in the camera. Like I feel like the eyes are the window to the soul, and so I kind of like a nice soulful portrait, but that's just me. You might go the Ansel Adams route. You can choose whichever you want. Mario Testino, obviously looking right into the camera. Um, what about the pose? Do you want to do a flattering pose? So if you want to have a flattering pose, that might be something that you would use more in a happy or upbeat, pleasing portrait. Um, you want to accentuate your very best features. Um, so, like one popular angle is kind of looking up more into the camera. So, your face looks like thinner, or it's just a more flattering angle in general. Um, let's see. Another pose I like is when you kind of angle your shoulders a little bit and then pull your head back toward the camera. And then even a nice eye level shot is good. But maybe you're not really going for a flattering pose, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but sometimes, the way we want to convey ourselves to the world could depend on our mood. Maybe we're not in a mood where we want to be happy and look our very best, right? Um, an unflattering pose could be used to depict a more somber mood, or you could just give precedence to whatever it is you're trying to convey over the pose and just not worry about the pose so much. Sometimes when you take photos from a low angle rather than the high angle, which is a little more flattering, right? It can be less flattering. But again, if you're trying to convey a more moodier or more somber mood, you might consider using that angle. All right, let's look on to the next picture. All right, this is Edward Weston. Again, gazing away from the camera, not connecting with the viewer, but that's okay. Photographed with his camera, which makes a lot of sense, right? Art Wolfe. So this is a National Geographic photographer, and there's a seal laying on him. Is that a seal, or is that I think that's a seal. I don't know. Somebody who is more familiar with animals, maybe Christabel, would know the answer to that. But anyway, since he's a nature photographer, it makes sense that an animal might be on his back for this photo, right? And of course, he's laying like on a rocky area. I'm guessing this is like in front of a body of water of some kind. So again, he's being photographed in his element. He's got his jacket on that he uses when he's outside, photographing wildlife and whatever, and then he has his toboggan on. So all the elements of a really good environmental portrait, right? And then this is Annie Leibovitz. You guys have probably heard of her. She used to work for the Rolling Stone magazine, and now lots of celebrities commission her for portraits. I love this because she's so rugged. She's not fancy at all. So here she is in the back of this pickup truck with her little camera around her neck and, looking very confident and with sort of a half smile, but definitely kind of showing her more in her element. Like she's hopping in that truck and she's going out on location. She's going to do her thing, and she knows she's going to rock it. So that's Annie Leibovitz. I also found this really great article in the New Yorker a few years ago when I first started teaching, and I always come back to it because I love it so much. So the New Yorker did this article kind of on selfies and how they're like the popular thing now in the 2000s, and so they talked to a few different photographers, and they're like, hey, in selfie generation, tell us what your thoughts on self-portraits. So they all kind of have some varying perspectives, and I wanted to share 3 of them with you. This is Deanna Lawson, and she says, at least once a year, I make a self-portrait. It's an occasion for the artist to construct her representation through her own medium, be it a camera or a paintbrush or what have you. It's an opportunity to declare who you are visually and who you aspire to be. A selfie is a smaller branch of self-portraiture, quick and less considered. A self-portrait considers the inferiority of the artist. It's a moment for self-reflection, to pause and look at yourself. And I completely agree with that. That's exactly my perspective. And here we see her. I'm not familiar with her work, but I might just gather from this photo that she, shoots on location, that she uses a film camera, and it's a very old fashioned one. It's a beautiful camera, but anyway, she's looking right into the camera, like sort of a more reflective, I would say, more of a somber picture, but like in a very happy setting. So maybe she has like a certain intensity to her, but her floral dress and being in this gorgeous location with her big fancy camera makes me feel like she's really approachable, but just very thoughtful. So let's move on to the next one. How do I get there? Oh, down here. So this one is funny. It reminded me of a few of my students this year. You don't have to take yourself seriously in a self-portrait. It's up to you how you want to portray yourself to the world. If you want to be goofy, if you want to show that goofy side of your personality, you can. Now, this one I would say is like a less flattering portrait, but I don't think that's at all what the photographer was going for. He didn't go into this looking to make the most, the fanciest self-portrait. He wasn't trying to be to look his best. He was just trying to be funny, right? Um, so, and I'm gonna butcher his name, Nobuyoshi Araki. Um, he says, or all of Araki's work is a reflection of his life with the camera, his obsession with life, and wanting to document all of it. Inevitably, some shots include him, but seldom as a formal self-portrait. So this just gives you an example of taking that self-portrait in kind of a goofy direction. And I know a few of you will really gravitate towards this, and that's totally fine. You're free to go in whatever direction you want with your self-portrait. All right, and so let me find the last one here. I thought this one was really interesting. Definitely more of a somber shot. Taken at night, looks like a really high ISO, and frankly, it's not even like it's not a super sharp picture. But what's interesting about this is every self-portrait he does, he's trying to depict himself as an outsider. And when I read you his little caption, you'll understand why. His name is Yusuf Nabil, and he says, "When I left Egypt in 2003, I felt that I died. Everything had changed around me, and I was trying to start my life again in a new place with new people. I went back to Cairo a year later, and everyone had gotten used to living without me. It was almost like I was a ghost coming from the past. Then I left again. When I started having this feeling, I began taking my self-portraits, me as a visitor everywhere I go. It's the same relation I have with my life. For me, living is about coming to a place that is not yours, then having to leave." So it's kind of a sad thought. It sounds like he's an immigrant. He feels out of place, and he uses photography, I mean, probably to help work through some of that, but also to kind of reflect his life and what he's feeling. And I think that's a really good way to use art, like to kind of work through things, like uh, help you see how you're seeing yourself through photography. So I want you to think about all of those things this week when you're taking your own self-portrait. Please be careful with the light. You want to make sure that your choices are intentional. And if you do choose to do a moodier kind of picture with harsher light, that's great. I love the intention behind that. So whatever direction you want to take it, I think I'd like to see 2 of your very best self-portraits, and they do not have to be different setups, but I'm sure you'll have to take more than one, obviously, to get your very best self-portrait. So I'd just like to see 2 of your favorites, all right? And when you do that, you're going to have to use the timer button on your camera. And I'll be right back to explain how to do that, so stay tuned for 1 second. All right, guys, just a quick tutorial on how to set your timer in your camera, okay? On my camera, it's probably not going to be the same as yours, but I'm just going to go ahead and show you for purposes of demonstration, trying to get the glare off the camera. You're going to be pushing this button, the AF drive button. It's probably going to be different on your camera. Get out those trusty manuals and you'll be able to figure out how to do it on your camera. Okay, so after you push the AF drive button, then you'll be using a knob on your camera. In my case, it's this one. And you're just going to select the timer mode. So for me, it looks like, oops, sorry, can you see it? It's like a tiny little thing that looks like a clock and has some like lines beside it. On my camera, that's the 10-second timer. You want whatever timer is going to give you the most time to run into the picture. Anything less than 10 seconds is going to be not enough time. So select the 10-second timer. And then you just focus and shoot as usual, okay? So you focus, shoot, and I don't know if y'all can hear that, but it's like a ding, 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 okay? And then it speeds up, and then it takes the picture. All right, so speaking of focusing, how do you focus? Or actually, before we talk about focusing, let's talk about how you set up your camera. If you have a tripod, that's awesome. If you don't have a tripod, don't stress. You can use a lot of different things as a tripod. For me, when I don't have a tripod with me, I just stack some books up on a table, put my camera at the proper height, and that stabilizes it just fine. And you guys can do that easily at home. Or you can just put your little, I don't know what you call it, the little thing that you attach to the bottom of your camera. It comes with the camera, it screws in, and then you can slide your camera onto your tripod to take the picture. So that's basically how you set up your camera. As far as focusing, what you want to do is get some kind of prop and put it around in the general vicinity of where your eyes are going to be, okay? I know that sounds crazy, but you know, it might be like a vacuum cleaner, like something that could be up at the level of where you're sitting, and focus on that. And then when you come over, push that out of the picture, and that's where your eyes would be. So you can focus on the top of the vacuum cleaner, run in, push it out of the way, and that's how you'll know that you are in the right range of focusing. As far as your aperture goes, I would select something that's not super shallow. I mean, if you want that nice blurry background, you are going to have a shallow aperture, but you might just not want to be as open as 1.8 because that's going to give you a very like shallow plane of focus, if that makes sense. So that's basically how you do it. You guys are going to probably have to do this a couple of times. It takes a little trial and error. It does no matter what, no matter if you're a veteran photographer or if you're a brand new photographer. So y'all just have fun with it. Some people actually told me about some technology that you can download. If you have like a newer camera, some cameras will allow you to download some software an app onto your phone where you can remotely take the picture and you can kind of look at it while you're getting set up and then take the picture, and it makes it a little bit easier. If you have access to something like that, feel free to use that technology. Use whatever is available to you. So I hope you all have a great week. I look forward to seeing some self-portraits from you guys. I only require you to do one setup this week, but I do want 2 finished self-portraits, okay? And those will need to be edited. I'll put your assignment up on the website, and hope you have a good week. Talk to you soon. Bye.